So I've been a South Park fan for as long as I can remember. Having a brother that is 7 years older than you has its benefits sometimes. So I kind of grew up with the show. Don't tell my parents, please. And something that I feel like is now an anniversary with me is getting in and out of the show. Back in like 2021, I got into the show again, and that's when I decided to, for the first time, dabble in the 2 games that came out over the past few years. The main reason I never attempted to play them was because of the play style of them being like turn-based taking game. It just wasn't up my alley, but I just decided to risk it since they were pretty cheap, and oh my god, was that one of the best decisions I've ever made. Now, I will be honest that I think that the Stick of Truth is by far the better game out of the 2, and honestly, if you've never played it, trust me, do. It took me on such a crazy adventure throughout the story of that game that to this day I have flashbacks to it and I'm like, that really did happen, did it? Like, look at me. I'm David Hasselhoff, holding a weapon that I cannot show you on YouTube, and in a crab suit that has ridiculously large nipples. Yeah, just this game already explains to you what it is. Now, if we're going to talk about Fractured But Whole, that one on the other side feels a bit different. It feels a bit off. They definitely took the whole like combat style and changed it up, which surprisingly, the amount of freedom that you have, I kind of don't like it. I do prefer the way the Stick of Truth worked, and overall, it definitely wasn't as strong as the first game, but it was still pretty fun and enjoyable. They're both just great games that expanded on just the South Park lore and gave you the ability to explore South Park itself and get to know the characters that you already probably love even more and find out some very fun and interesting story aspects to it. So of course, when I learned that South Park was releasing a brand new game, I was super pumped. The concept seemed so cool. A snow themed time, and the game was going to be set in third person, like that just seemed so bizarre, but also so perfect, as from the way I envisioned it, it would be the perfect opportunity to bring us back to South Park for the third time and not only let us explore the brand new locations like Turgiddy Farms or just anything else that came out in the most recent seasons, and just let us see it in third person this time and all in like 3D fully. I thought that would have been brilliant, and then I found out that the game is instead a co-op multiplayer that is a live service video game that has you simply hopping in from location to location, taking on multiple enemies. You know, that does sound like a normal game, but trust me, this one is far from it. It could have had so much potential in my opinion, and it still does. I'm not going to bash the game straight away and be like, oh my god, it's the worst game ever made. It definitely was a bit disappointing, and in today's video, I want to go down that journey and just quickly talk you through this story and the way it plays. The game literally just came out, and I didn't actually pre-order it just because I was kind of being cautious, and when I learned the true like way the game works, I was kind of like, okay, I'm not gonna buy it. But because I recently also got back into rewatching the show, I decided to get it. Thankfully, I didn't spend the $30 because of the PlayStation system of like getting free money, so I only paid $15, but still, it was $15. So without further ado, let's get right into the story. We start off in South Park in the classic 2D animation as Cartman's mom is watching the news in horror because there is a blizzard sweeping through South Park. Of course, this means that Cartman is jumping with joy because this has the potential of having a snow day, which means no school. They show some stuff off of the news like Stark Pond, where there's like a truck that crashed and like a bunch of people died, and Cartman's mom is just shocked and appalled, and then Cartman is just excited because he is just so happy that this could mean it's a snow day. I do kind of like the way they are demonstrating this. It really is just kind of like showing that, you know, he is still a child. It's very childlike. If I was a kid, I don't know if I'd really care if people would have died. I would have just been like, oh my god, snow, hell yeah. So I do like the way they are showing this off. We get a part during the night where his mom is sleeping and he runs in screaming, is it snow day? And then he goes back to his room because it isn't yet and prays to God that please let it happen. And then he wakes up and everything is absolutely covered in snow. Finding out on the news that the blizzard is incredibly horrible, a lot of people have died, but it did mean it was a snow day and school was cancelled. And from here, we transition as Cartman changes into his wizard outfit and goes outside. The transition of like going from 2D to 3D is actually really cool. And honestly, I was a bit skeptical on how to feel about the whole like 3D look of the game, but it kind of works and I got used to it extremely fast, almost straight away. One really cool detail to really mention is the way they were able to animate the characters in 3D 3D to look so much like they are the South Park characters was they first animated them in 2D like a normal South Park episode, and then just took the 2D animation and layered 3D over it to make it 3DS. From here, Cartman is yelling for everyone to come outside because it is a snow day, and then he calls the new kid. If you haven't played the previous two games, we basically play as the same character in a way. You do get to customize it and change the way he looks, but it's basically the same kid. They even have the crown from the previous game on top of his head from Fractured But Whole, but because of how crazy the last time it went when they were playing, there's a brand new feature inside of this game, and that is the rules. Just because of how overpowered he became. Usually when kids play, they come up with stuff on the spot, and now, you know, they're trying to find a bit of balance, so there is a rule book in place. And because of that, it means that we have to go through a tutorial. So they kind of have an excuse of, hey, we're gonna take you through a tutorial because, you know, it's a new rule, but honestly, it's just because the game is in 3D now, and they gotta walk you through the way the game works. The basic idea of this whole storyline right now is it's humans versus elves. So as a human, I will be fighting a bunch of elves. Through the tutorial, we are guided by Butters, who is the keeper of the rules. He's basically the person that tries to keep track of everything, so he doesn't really play with the kids apart from, again, just being the person that just is like, nope, that's stupid, that's bad, do this, do that. Here I also learned that there is a brand new currency inside of this game, or at least one of three. I'll talk about the other ones later. The one that we are introduced to is toilet paper. I do kind of also like the reference here. It's basically going back to the whole like COVID idea where, you know, toilet paper was like the thing that everybody fought for, and in this, because there is like an end of times blizzard, everybody's desperate to get toilet paper, so the kids use it as one of their currencies. But you might be wondering, what do you use it to buy? You use it on cards. This is basically how they keep track of the rules. There are two different versions. There's ones that give you buffs, so it's these really cool looking ones that are drawn by the kids. I do really like that detail as well. They're just like completely messy drawings that I imagine like Cartman drew together with Butters or something, and they give you like buffs to your weapons or to your special abilities and different things like that. But there's also bullshit cards. They're used exactly what their name is. The bullshit card is used when a child uses something that is basically going to make you say, well, that's bullshit, why did you use that? So that's what they use them for, and they're just allowed. Each time you play, you have to choose them before you hop in, so you get to choose your bullshit card and your buff card. Now the cool thing with the buff card is you kind of get to upgrade it as you go on with the toilet paper, so that's what you use it for. Also here, I was able to get a weapon from Token, who's basically like the person who keeps track of all of your weaponry. You don't always have to go over to him, but it is kind of neat that they do have characters in the map itself to essentially kind of give character to everything. And also here, Butters introduces us to one of our many abilities, and that is the fart escape. Basically, you fart up into the sky and you create like a stink thing for the enemies around you to essentially escape. And I really enjoyed using this one. I think I used this one like the entire time, and something that I didn't find out until the very end of the game, there is literally a button inside of the game that makes you fart like on command, and I am so disappointed I did not know it before. And there's even a trophy inside of the game that requires you to fart on a boss. I haven't gotten that one yet, but with this fart ability, I was able to make my way around and make my way into the elementary school, where we find Mr. Mackey, who is frozen inside of his room. He essentially goes on to tell me to go back home to do like, you know, study, but who the hell wants to do that? But at the top of the school, we are introduced to the bow system, which is your second weapon. You basically have your melee weapon and a ranged weapon. I rarely ever use the bow just because the aiming inside of this game is honestly really bad, and I understand it's like a kid trying to aim, but it just made me annoyed. There are definitely way better weapons like a wand or a fire staff. It's kind of insane, but that comes in later. Inside of the tutorial, they also introduce you to the idea of the game being co-op, so you essentially have the ability to either play with friends or just random like AI comes in and helps you out every single time you go up against enemies. And if you're not playing with your friends, they'll just come in to help you out, if it's to revive you or just to give you a bit of a help. And I'll be honest, they were actually sometimes really helpful throughout my playthrough, and I didn't actually mind this feature. But once the tutorial was done, we were in Koopa Keep, which is the main hub inside of the game where you get to just buy outfits, change out your weapons, or start missions. What I had to do from here was go over to the Stark Pond that we saw at the beginning of the intro to find out what the hell the elves are up to because they are planning an attack on Koopa Keep. So before we do that, you have the option of, as I've mentioned before, where you get the choice of choosing your cards and the enemies also get to choose that. Inside of this mission, our main boss guy is going to be Kyle. Once you're inside of the game, to quickly describe the gameplay, it's essentially you running from area to area and beating up elves. It's honestly the most generic, kind of boring playstyle, and I know it's what the game is and it's what it's based on, but I did find this incredibly boring, incredibly fast. Another really annoying feature for a next-gen console game, specifically even the PS5, I found this game having way too many loading screens, or at least cutaways. I feel like this could have benefited by just being one huge open area, because you go from this little hub map to another hub map each time after you complete it, and sometimes before you move on you get the ability to talk to Jimmy, who just upgrades your cards. You can also find Henrietta, who basically gives you other options of cards. They can differ from different things that are mainly just really helpful, like give you 100 toilet paper, or sometimes just replenish your bullshit card if you already used one of them. One thing that I found incredibly annoying was the kindergartens themselves. They just do not shut up. It's little kids voicing them and they're really good voice actors, but oh my god, they did not have to have them talk so much. But as I make my way through this kind of boring playstyle, I find Randy, who is stuck inside of the pond that is frozen over from that news that we saw, and he tells us he can tell us where Kyle is if we rescue him, because he is desperate to escape with his toilet paper. Remember, toilet paper is an incredibly prized possession. Well, we do that by going from different hub areas to different hub areas, collecting a key and some gas, and once we do that, we managed to get Randy out of there. The thing with this is he didn't really give us all that much information and ended up escaping. I do like this bit where he's talking and just an elf in the background is blocking it off so we can't escape later on. It's kind of like being very self-aware of what kind of a game it is. And from here, we had to fight more elves, and then we found Kyle himself. Let me tell you something about boss fights inside this game. There's 5 chapters, which is the amount of time that the game takes you to finish. It's about 4 to 5 hours. Each chapter ending has a boss fight at the end of it, and each boss fight has its own style to it. The worst boss fight inside the game is this. I absolutely hated it. It sucked. You know, Cartman is kind of right, because Kyle is kind of incredibly annoying. His attacks are just stupid. He has these vines that never calm down, and I know the game is oh, use the bounce pads around the place. Man, they're not that easy to get to. Thankfully, with the help of the AI, I was able to take him down, and then we essentially kind of recruited Kyle. He was just kind of with us now. He joined our side because turns out we weren't hunting down Kyle, but the true purpose of what we're supposed to do is find out who the hell caused this blizzard, because it's getting a bit out of control. Now, Kyle does suspect Stan to be the person that is doing all of this, and before I did that, I decided to walk around a bit of Koopa Keep. Here is where I found a porta potty, and I was introduced to the idea of dark matter, which is our second currency. Inside of the porta potty, I heard Mr. Hanky, which was a really cool thing. He basically comes back inside of this game, and he gives you dark matter that you're able to use to upgrade yourself. It's essentially like a skill tree currency. Now, let me quickly spoil what dark matter is to you. It's literally shit. You use shit to upgrade your stuff. It's perfect for South Park. Also, I upgraded the way I look. I feel like this suits my kind of character more, and if it's the best I can do inside of this game, then I'll take it. But after I was done and I talked to Cartman, I was off to hunt down Stan. We did the thing again where we just chose our cards, and in I was. One thing I do really enjoy is each time the characters are oh, I chose these cards for you, but I can't fight for you, so go on, new kid. And they also point out multiple times that no, you're the best new kid, not the other 3 players that are with you. You're the best new kid. It's a very funny thing that is just constantly coming back, but it did make me giggle each time. Trying to hunt down Stan is the same thing of just going through different hub areas until we get to the main street, where we saw Stan super far away with an axe that is kind of glowing purple. He decides to throw it at Cartman, but he dodges and instead hits me, which gets me killed. But because, it's kids playing, they come up with the idea on the spot that no, It dealt 99 damage and Cartman was able to revive me, and he told me that I needed to find out what the hell Stan was using on that weird powered up axe and get it for myself. So to avoid Stan's constant throwing of the axe, I was off to the rooftops to get to him as fast as I could. Here I also got introduced to a brand new enemy for the elves. It's a 5th grader, so not exactly an elf, but they were kind of tanky, they were very annoying, and here I also realized how difficult this game kind of is. I did struggle a few times and went down more than I'm proud to say, but you know, I kind of did accept the challenge, and at the end of the day, it was just kind of boring just constantly doing the same thing over and over. As I made my way through that mindless fighting of hordes of elves and 5th graders, I reached the amphitheater where Stan decided to instead use Princess Kenny instead of himself to fight me. So I guess we're not going up against Stan in this level. I will be honest, going from the Kyle boss fight to this one, it was really nice because this boss fight was great. Kenny is definitely like one of the best characters in South Park, and the fact that whenever he becomes Princess Kenny, he just embraces that kawaii anime character inside of him was really fun and made for a very enjoyable and different boss fight. He used like music and his little hee 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 stuff and attacked you, but at the end of the day, he was really easy to defeat, and once we defeated him, I guess he kind of joined us because we just went back to the Koopa Keep. So now with chapter 3, we are really going to go hunt down Stan, but before we do that, we are supposed to do the thing that Cartman tasked us with, and that is finding out how the hell we're going to get an upgrade. We start off back at the main street and we see Uncle Jimbo, who is Stan's uncle, getting absolutely hoarded over by a horde of people who want to get stuff off of him because he's the only person that is open during this blizzard. So what he does is tasks us with a different objective of finding 3 different things. The first one is absolutely ridiculous. He makes us look for Butters sports drink. If you don't know what that is, I'm not going to try to explain it to you in this video, but one thing I'm going to say is, how the hell did Butters manage to fill up a whole ass keg of it? Like, that is absolutely insane. The second thing he made us go and collect is some lavender sheets, which was an interesting one, and the last thing was just CDs. After I got all of these things, I was able to interact with a porta potty and it literally shat on me. Okay, one step closer, I guess. From here, I was tasked with another little objective, and that was lighting up these like witch fire things, which was just essentially burning myself because of course our character couldn't think of anything smarter, and lighting up these little parts that let us progress through the building to light the top beacon. This was actually kind of refreshing, and I did prefer this kind of a mission style, but once again, after we did that, we got shit on. Yeah, this game is wild. But after this meant we were powered off and we reached Stan after obviously going through some hordes of just elves upon elves. And when we reached Stan, he was kind of panicking until he got reminded that he has a snowman dragon, which was really cool for a set piece. I had to use cannonballs, or well, bowling balls, to launch out of a cannon, which is a feature inside this game that I forgot to mention. It's just kind of like a thing you can do sometimes to like break ice or stuff like that. It's pretty cool, I will be honest. After doing that, I was able to punch him around until half of his health was down, and Randy, his dad, showed up, who stole toilet paper off of Butters' dad, and he was panicking and found out that if I win, I get that toilet paper, so he decided to join Stan, which honestly made no difference. I did play this level on normal and it didn't feel any more difficult after that. It was relatively easy and we defeated Stan. Back at the Koopa Keep, we found out that Stan wasn't the person who started this blizzard, like at all, and instead we found out that once he basically got a special upgrade on his axe of dark matter from Mr. Hanky, he became weird. So this is where they kind of put the pieces together. The person or the thing that is causing this blizzard is Mr. Hanky this whole time, so they decided they had to stop him. And with this, it meant that basically the snow day would be over, and you can guess that Cartman didn't like the idea of that. So what Cartman did was kind of turn his back on everyone and went back to the horde of people and offered some chalky milk, which had Mr. Hanky inside of it. And then on top of that, it basically made the people go crazy after consuming it because they consumed chocolate mixed with like magic shit. Yeah. Anyway, once we start this mission, it's just a normal thing. There's no one there, so we choose the cards, and then Cartman reveals he is the villain, or well, the person that's kind of like betraying us. So now we have to hunt him down. This is our 4th boss fight. It kind of added up. So making my way through, it's again same stuff until we reach a part where we have to chase Cartman down, and as I do that, I find my first adult, which is basically the people who consume the poop. Then once I got closer to the part where it was time to battle Cartman, it was really cool. Like, I thought this like set piece of all the like heads from Cartman turning against you and lighting up was really menacing and kind of creative, which I wish this game was more of over time. It didn't really share this kind of a setting or creepiness most of the time, but once I made my way there, Cartman reveals that he has a big snowman that's, you know, like him but bigger. I'm pretty sure that's a reference to that episode where they all became like anime characters and Butters got hurt. Really good episode, definitely top tier episode. I recommend if you haven't seen it. But battling him, you know, basic stuff, fighting him until he runs to a different spot, does some like meteors, until he did this attack where he duplicated himself into like multiple snowmen. This one was really difficult to figure out, and one thing I learned was that there's like an achievement where you have to defeat him by finding him first go, and there's like 2 phases to this, so that was pretty cool. Anyway, after defeating him, he joined our side, and he was of course like, whoa guys, I was on your side this whole time, what are you talking about? With all of them all coming back, they were off to hunt down Hanky the Christmas poop for the actual official time. And Hanky revealed why he is doing all of this, and that is because there was an episode where he got banished away from South Park because of his irresponsible, racist, bad tweets he made. So essentially he got cancelled. So with that, he was betrayed by not only the people of South Park but his friends also. So that's why he's, you know, being a dickhead too, like all the guys. He also does this thing where he's like, you know that they're using you, new kid, and like it's true because the new kid is never mentioned inside of the show, and like this is supposed to be canon to the show, so they are really just using the new kid each time they play, which, you know, whatever, it works. So from here I had to climb up like this hospital that had an ice poop on top of it. Going through this, it wasn't anything too difficult, and I will be honest, I think this is my favorite level, probably because of what happens in a while, but it didn't feel too long and too painful. You do have to do the classic thing of fighting just kindergarteners here and there, but once I made my way to the top, we find Mr. Hanky in this like weird trance thing, and for once Cartman was the smart character or person overall who was like, hey guys, maybe we shouldn't touch him because he probably wants one of us to touch him so that he can gain powers from us. And the guys were like, shut up, he's probably trying to betray you, and you know what? He wasn't, because that's exactly what Mr. Hanky wanted you to do. He wanted the main character to touch him so that he could get some of his powers to basically become absolutely insane. We get teleported back to like this weird arena, and we get the reveal of what Mr. Hanky has become. He became the Shaisa Hulud, which is essentially our incredible reference, not only to Dune, if you haven't seen Dune or Dune Part 1, Dune 2, or the books, it's the worm from Dune. Not only is it a reference with the name, but also, if you didn't know, Scheiße in German is shit. So he is Shit Hulud, or whatever the hell that means in Dune. And you have to fight him. The way you do that is by finding toilet paper around the place, which it comes back. So it's kind of like a reference to the COVID times, and you know, because it's poop and like dark matters, poop and all of that stuff. And you basically collect it from mini hankies, who are like the new boss that is attacking you, and you're supposed to load it up into a cannon and blast it at Mr. Hanky or Shaisa Hulud, whatever you want to call him. This boss fight was incredibly easy, but really fun and over the top ridiculous. The audio and everything from the characters talking was really funny, and this is what I really wanted from like a South Park game, so I wish there was more chaos like this, specifically even comparing it to the past games. But once he's defeated, we get a cutscene that's 2D, and this time we find out that the blizzard is no more because obviously Mr. Hanky's defeated, and the kids are waiting to go back to school at their classic bus stop. Cartman is absolutely defeated, snow day is no more, so school is back up, and he does say that he hoped that God would have done something, and that meant that Jesus had to return. One cool detail that I completely messed out, in this we find out that Mr. Hanky is actually Jesus's poop. Yeah, according to the priest at least. And Jesus lets them know that he is disappointed in them. Why? Because they gave up on their friend. So after that discipline and just finding out that they should go and apologize to Mr. Hanky, that is exactly what they do. He accepts the apology and they just ask him for one more thing: to make the blizzard come back. Which is obviously an awful thing because a lot of more people will die. But hey, the game can keep on going. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the actual official story is over. Let me quickly talk about some stuff, because I might have been talking about the game and sounded like I absolutely loved it. I think this was definitely one of the most disappointing messes that I've played in forever. Hearing a person talk about this story is definitely different than experiencing it yourself. Trust me on that one. So after game, you get introduced to like this character who is like, oh, come to me in a match, and if you come to me inside of a match, I'll give you like a challenge, and if you do this challenge while you play, you'll unlock outfits, which, okay, I guess that's a way of replaying. But you want to know what you replay? You replay the 5 chapters. There's nothing else. Unless you count the DLC that is free. Don't know why it's classified as a DLC. Maybe to make the game smaller, I guess, when you download it. From Henrietta, who essentially gives you like these kind of waves of fighting just elves upon elves. And just, you know, you get stuff out of it. It's pretty boring. That's it. It's really boring. But there is a good side to it all, and that is the game is supposed to be updated every 2 weeks after a new episode, or I guess a movie, comes out with relative content. Now I don't know if that means like references like they do right now have inside of the game, like the brand new Cred episode that came out, which is obviously making fun of Prime, and you have a Cred outfit, or does it mean more story missions? Because I do not see this game kind of continuing on to live with this style of gaming. So let's go down the rabbit hole of live service games. There's a huge problem with storyline live service games nowadays, and that is just because I don't think companies understand how to do these games. They don't work if you just make us play a storyline and then are like, yeah, replay the same storyline arcs or do the same stuff over and over. We'll slap a battle pass in here and it's a live service game. Currently, the most recent example of this, apart from South Park, is the Suicide Squad. That just seems awful to me. Prior to that, the worst other example in my opinion is like the Avengers game. That was awful as well, and it literally shut down. I don't think South Park doing this was a good idea, but hey, this could become a peak top tier game. But as of right now, for $30, I don't think it's worth it, and I don't think you should buy it unless you're a hardcore South Park fan. Myself being a hardcore South Park fan, I actually didn't enjoy it all that much, and I don't find myself wanting to go back and replay it, but I will try to platinum it just because it is a relatively easy to a certain extent platinum. So unless you want to get a free easy platinum and a bit of fun for like 4 to 3 to 5 hours depending on how good you are, then I don't really think you should get it. Wait, see if the game doesn't absolutely get cancelled with its like future content updates, because I could see that happening. It could become a top tier game, trust me, and I'm not gonna deny that. But as of right now, for the amount of money it was a disappointing, barely replayable mess of a game that just lacks content on launch. Even give me more weapons. Like, the amount of weapons and different abilities that there are inside this game is just disappointing. But there is a good example out there in my opinion, something that I want to also compare it to, and that is Helldivers. I might have mentioned like Suicide Squad, but Helldivers is a perfect example of a really good live service, continuously updated game, and I hope they kind of take some inspiration from it. Maybe add a battle pass in the future. They don't need to because they have like a purchasing system inside of the game. At least there's no currency. You know, I do like that. There is no like V-Bucks inside of this. Hell, I'll take it. I don't know if there's anything more to say apart from the story and the game. I basically walked you through everything. So if you've watched this far into the video and you still want to play it, then that's good, I guess. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed. This was a really fun video to make. If you are a subscriber already and you watched this far, I have been making a lot of Lego videos, but that's just because it's games that I enjoy playing, and that's what I want to do on this channel. Lego games aren't the only ones that I play. There are other ones, and I do plan on making like Stick of Truth and also Fractured But Whole in the future, but for now I just wanted to do this because it's the most recent game and I felt like I had a lot to say about it, and I might be making these videos whenever new games come out. Thank you so much for watching. If you are brand new and you watched this far, definitely be sure to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. We're on the goal to hitting 1,000 subscribers, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.